Aho, it's Mark. Medicine with the Metals, not Medicine Path. And Michelle's in the background today. Today, we got Drew Bankey, right? Is that it, Drew? Is that how you say your last name?
Yeah, man. That's it.
Yeah. So we've been watching Drew on this path for a little while, and he's been watching us. We all have some similarities in common, but I'm going to let him introduce himself, and we're going to talk psychedelics today. How about that, Drew?
Sounds great. It's my I love to talk about it. It's my life. So
Me too. Me too. So
so
let's see. How did you get on this path, my friend?
um I guess being born after being on the path, I realized that my path has started long before I was even born. But in this life, I guess tragedy and trauma manifested in PTSD and basically led me to the medicine in 2016. Drank it at Soul Quest in Florida for the very first time. My first ceremony was horrendous. I basically was in the bathroom over and over all night. No throwing up, but just in the bathroom. Um, I let the imagination run on that, what went on
Right.
in there. But yeah, that first night didn't have any visions or anything. Signed up already, signed up for the second night already. My wife was there. It was my then girlfriend, now wife.
Mhm.
But she was there with me going through the ceremonies for the first time as well. And uh, we decided to stay. She didn't have a really good experience first night either. No visions or anything like that. We stayed the second night, and the second night was massive breakthroughs, massive visions. You know, uh, huge breakthrough moments. Meeting the spirit of Mother Ayahuasca. Went ahead and went back the following weekend. Did another set of ceremonies. Did a daytime ceremony, and that was I was really shown. So I guess it was my third ceremony. I was shown that I was going to have a church one day. I was going to write books and speak all this spiritual stuff. And at the time, like that was not me. I was, uh, you know, two-time combat veteran. Two tours in Iraq in the early years, and that was like my persona, and it had nothing to do with spirituality. And so going to ayahuasca for the very first time was really to try to get some relief from PTSD and suicidal thoughts and depression, which was really taken over my existence at that point. And the spiritual aspect was something I knew about, but had no idea of how profound it was going to be when I encountered it. And yeah, I've been on that path ever since. Ended up doing 6 ceremonies in total at Soul Quest, and um, left and um, started doing more smaller, intimate, traditional ceremonies, and ended up sun dancing for 3 years. So that's like a ceremony that's done without any medicine or anything. It's just a fasting ceremony, 4 days without food and water. You dance sun up to sundown, pierce your chest. There's a rope attached to a tree. Um, there's so done a lot of ceremonies outside of medicine ceremonies, and seen a similarity throughout the years of magical, mystical experiences, even without medicine,
Right.
particularly with fasting uh, and ancient, old ceremonies, very old ceremonies. So, yeah, we had that calling early on that saw I was going to have a church one day, and started our church probably around 2018 underground. 2020 we beginning of 2020 we filed with the state of Colorado for plant medicine church, 501c3, all that, and we've been running our church ever since like that. We're about to take on we're talking with investors right now to go through a really big expansion and maybe take on another property. We're working with 5MEO, Changa, mainly, and Combo is our main ceremonies that we're doing right now. We're doing mostly private ceremonies because I just had a newborn recently, so we're going through a family growth right now. But
Right.
we're
Right.
about to go through a big church growth right now. We're going into that moment, so it's very surreal, for it to see it really happening from the vision I had so many years ago at Soul Quest, sitting on that lawn in between the main building and the pond, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners can visualize where I'm talking about. And, just to have that moment there and that vision, and, you know, it involves some ants and, all kinds of other intricacies. It's too long a story to really tell right now, but to go to that moment and go to that disbelief coming out of that vision, and now seeing it manifesting before my eyes, it's really, it's profound,
Yeah. I
So
mean, our stories are very similar, my friend. And I just love that, a lot of us get this calling when we come off these medicines to do these things, but not a lot of us accomplish what you have accomplished. So much kudos to you, and also these that medicine, that first time I drank that medicine, I also went to Soul Quest. And, when I got off that first journey, it was like, I didn't understand it, but I got off that journey and I bought the Plant Medicine Path URL. I just bought it 3 years ago. Just bought this thing. I said, it's going to happen one day. We're going to do something with this. And here it is almost 3 years later. And just like you, the things we've done, it's mind boggling. And
yeah,
I think we see it because for me, I could just say, nothing worked, nothing worked. Nothing got me out of that depression or that headspace or that monkey mind. Still to this day, it takes me a little bit of those tools that I still need, that I gain. And psychedelics did that, man. And, lots of trips with Mother Aya. And then I think what my breaker was 5-MeO. 5-MeO I sat with a beautiful woman in, where was she from, babe? Titusville? Yeah, her name was Zio. And, rock my world, brother.
yeah, man.
First time ever. And it's all God.
I had I had a 5-MeO experience, that melding with source, moment, without 5-MeO, just spontaneously. It was like a day or two after, like, a really, really strong San Pedro ceremony, and really connected with the sun. And I don't know, there's rumors I might even levitated a little bit off the ground in that moment. But anyways, a few days after that, I had this spontaneous experience where I melded with, I went to the throne room basically and had a oneness experience with source. And so it took me a while. The ayahuasca was the first big ultra I took on. Master plant medicine ultra I took on, and didn't really feel the calling to 5-MeO for a while, and then was gifted some. I was gifted like a half a gram in Florida a few years ago, and just had it for a while, and finally set with it. And yeah, when I really started to work with it, really took me back to that moment, that spontaneous moment. And that moment, looking back, it was so transformative for me, and so transformative for my consciousness. So it like catapulted me forward in my understanding of how things work with frequency, vibration, showed me history of, I was able to access history, of creation in those moments. And to be able to facilitate that for other people through 5-MeO, Bufo, traditional Bufo, various ceremonies now, it almost brings me to tears each time, because I know what it's going to do for that person, and I have that reference for all the ceremonies, but 5-MeO in general, now that's what we work with primarily, is just so powerful in those moments for
let's
long
talk about
lasting.
that. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that, because I think our listeners like to know this, because I think a lot of people fear these medicines, and they think we'll talk about addictions and things like that, because we talk about these medicines like we do them constantly, but we don't. So
Yeah.
first of all, let's talk about this experience with 5-MeO. What do you think that is? What do you think for you? I think I know what it is, but we're here with you. So what do you think that is?
I think it's, everything is frequency vibration. If we go back to what Nicholas Tesla said, it's maybe not be a direct quote, but he's talking about if you want to understand the way the universe works, think in terms of frequency and vibration. If you, the more that you've worked with medicine, I've cooked ayahuasca too, and definitely led ceremonies in traditional ayahuasca ceremonies. And there's a point in time when the Icaros, you start really working with the Icaros in your medicine path of leading ceremonies. So when working with 5-MeO, like it's very clear that, well, maybe not clear, but it's very clear theory for me that ayahuasca is matches the closest to the spirit of Mother Earth or the divine feminine. It's the way I view the universe or source, and then it's broken up into divine feminine. There, it trickles on down in the family trees, but that's the top of the family tree source, and then separated masculine, feminine. I believe ayahuasca, and it contains or most closely resembles that vibration of the divine feminine. I believe that 5-MeO is closer to source. I mean, it takes you right past all the other lessons and feelings and vibrations, and really takes you to, the moment of oneness, which is, ayahuasca can get you there. It can knock on the door, but not like 5-MeO can. And I think it's just simply a vibrational field. The vibrational field of 5-MeO takes your vibration of your body or your consciousness to a level to match with that vibration of source, just like it matches with the vibration of rapé or ayahuasca or psilocybin. They all have different vibrational codes, include tobacco and alcohol, all these things.
It's such an it's such an amazing, fast, quick acting, life changing medicine that there's such a future for it, and I think it is going to happen sooner or later. You know.
Yeah, I think our path is to be balanced,
Mhm.
and our body makes 4-NN-DMT, dimethyltryptamine. So our body makes the same the exact same DMT that is found in, or very close to the exact same DMT that's found in ayahuasca, that's found in the acacia tree, that's found in 200 plus plants around this world, and countless other animals that we're still trying to understand it all.
Yeah.
So, but it's mostly, I haven't heard of any animals. I would take that back, but it's mostly plants. And if our bodies and the plants are operating on under this DMT, that means our physical bodies, and that so the flip side of that is our consciousness, and what can our consciousness use to connect back to its original self. I think 5-MeO is an answer to that.
Yeah, I do too. And speaking of acacia, acacia tree was pretty biblical. It wrote a big book, didn't it? In my eyes, it
Yeah.
did. Well, that's a whole nother podcast. So, hey, a couple other things we're really in tune to, but all these medicines we're really in tune to because we truly believe in them so much for our mental health. Psilocybin, I think out of all these medicines, I think this is the one I think it's going to work in the Western world because it's accepted. There's a
Yeah.
lot of there's a lot of stuff going on in the psilocybin world right now. A
Oh
lot of
man,
acceptance of this medicine.
I was just at the psychedelic science
Yeah,
uh, up
a lot
there
of people are.
up in Denver, and man, if you ever wanted to learn about mushrooms, growing mushrooms, how to propagate them, or anything like that, that was the place to be. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
it
know.
was just booth after booth after booth of people selling bags, and spore prints, and giving out like every. I just would walk past booths and I would hear people talking about humidity levels and things like that. It
Yeah.
was. I may or may not have been involved in propagating mushrooms before. So
Hmm.
walking around, I was picking up on all these different conversations. And it was just beautiful. Um, the overall vibe of, you could hear each individual consciousness conversation, but you could also feel the overall vibe of the collective 12,000 people hum of that. Just okay, this is the time, this is
Yeah.
this is not the 60s. And because there's a lot of talk, okay, this is the psychedelic renaissance, or is it just a bunch of hippies that think the same thing that a bunch of people thought in the 60s? No,
I
I
think
don't.
there's too many woke people right now, Drew. Too many people are sick of the antidepressants. We'll just
Well,
keep it being
it's getting intertwined in so much. There's so much truth coming out right now. Like,
so
I mean,
much.
for God's sakes, we just had a congressional hearing an open congressional hearing where they said that we've been tracking UFOs forever.
Right.
We got physical bodies and all these other things. That just like, not to get off the plant medicine path,
Yeah, yeah.
but
I get that.
but that's a whole nother part. I see it's a whole. It's all connected.
It's all connected
The
for sure.
psychedelic renaissance, the 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 conversation of who ETs are now, because that's really the next conversation. It's not about like if they're exist or not. It's about who they are and what they want to do, and
And
there's
where
no
they are.
where are they.
Yeah.
But we're talking about multidimensionality, and then we start melting back into the plant medicine path. And that's really um, the plant medicine path. I man, I keep plugging your show, but
That's good. I like that. I love that.
it's opened me up to so much.
But
I'm
but it's so true. It's such a true statement, though. I mean, no matter what you think, it's plant medicine, and it just makes it easier for people to, I think, accept. It's plant medicine. It's okay. It's
yeah.
not. Sometimes magic mushrooms even throw me off when we're doing ads and stuff. Yeah, I like to
Mhm.
keep it simple. This is about mental health. I think like listen, very envious of you that being in that. I can't wait till next year's because we're going. But I think that's just a true statement from where we are in society right now. And
Mhm.
I think this medicine it's being it's so accepted. I'll just talk about our small group on Facebook of about 8,000, and I would say about 20 to 30% of that group is probably some way, shape, or form in the medical field or some kind of first responder. It's just
Yeah.
amazing. So
Well, it's that call to service too. Is that call it what man, a really early on realization. I think it was like in that third ceremony with ayahuasca, where the medicine was telling me I was supposed to be doing all this stuff in the future. And I was like, no, no, you don't know me. I've been to Iraq. I've done things I'm not proud of, this, that, and the other. And they're like, no, that's why you're on this path, because you're called to service. When you raised your hand and signed up for that military, that call that made you do that was you were misinterpreting your true calling of being, this spiritual person or whatever. I wrote 2 books too, and got my own podcast too, and all this other stuff. So all these things is not, I don't do it to boast about my story. I think telling our stories and sharing our stories are important because I don't own I don't own my story. Source owns my story,
mhm.
and I was shown it, and it's my duty to articulate it for other people. And then that makes it okay for them to share their stories. And that's how we really heal.
And I think before this conversation we were talking, I think that's what made that place in Orlando, SoQuest, so like impactful for so many. I mean,
Mm,
so many, because we were able to tell our stories freely and openly. We were able to openly tell our stories. And I think what they created there is what we need to create more of, like
yeah.
these communities of just,
Yeah.
we need to talk. We need to
Yeah.
communicate. We need to
It's
vent.
that me and my wife were just talking about this very subject the other day, because we was talking about how people get they go to Soul Quest, or they go to their first ceremony at some place, and then they really get called to be there. They feel that sense of community.
Mhm,
I have been, the Sundance. That's a yearly event that I did in 2017, 18, and 19.
mhm.
Without medicine, 4-day fast, dance sun up, sundown, the piercings, and all that. So that was a deep sense of community there too as well. And you know, we have the blessing of being able to experience that many times throughout the year. And some people only be able to have the ability to experience it. They go to Soul Quest or this and that. We, you know, me and my wife were talking. We are just really blessed to be able to experience and have that camaraderie over and over again. It's felt even facilitating the ceremonies. So you know, you feel a deep calling to everyone. You know, we had over this past year, I've been working with some people that are terminally ill, and one of them has passed recently over the past, you know, within the past couple months. And that was a person that intentionally did a ceremony with us because they only had 6 months to live, you know, from cancer, and they wanted to have an experience with Changa, and they wanted to really come to terms with what was about to happen. We was able to facilitate that for him. But when they passed, you know, I make a pact to these uh, uh, a lot now in ceremonies that if we can, if we're really going to start to change the fabric of time, we have to start really getting into the really hard stuff. You know, we have to start shifting the way that we grieve. We have to start shifting the way that we encounter death, especially when it's close to us. If we can shift that, then we can shift the fabric of time and how it plays out. So you know, I told this person, his name is Randy. You know, I talked to him before he passed and asked if I could, you know, speak about him in the future. His name was Randy, and I was like, Randy, you know, when you pass, and I get the news of your passing, you know, I get that within the next year or so, maybe 20 years, hopefully, but I'm going to get that one day. And I'm going to go back to this moment when you had your breakthrough in this ceremony, and I'm going to remember that moment. So I'm going to try to shift the fabric of time and not dive into this grief of why you're gone. I'm going to go into this moment of this memory of this beautiful moment that we had together right here and now.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, we can do medicine, we can go to ceremonies, we can go to Peru, we can look at astrological signs. But if we really want to start changing things, we need to start changing how we look at the hard things, the really, really hard things in our life.
Very true. Because isn't death the prize? I heard that one time in a journey. Death is the prize. Somebody said this, and it just is so beautiful. Like, wow,
Well,
it's the prize, man. It is the
I've
prize.
you know, I've had I've had a few near death experiences, but one really profound one, and coming out of that one smiling, you know, at the understanding that I had now, and like
Yeah.
the release of that fear of death. Well, you know, that to take that fear of death off your shoulders.
Hmm.
I didn't even know I had it, and then I realized like everyone has this cloak
It's
of
true.
the fear of death. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I can enjoy my life. I can enjoy these ceremonies. I can go fishing and enjoy and laugh with my family. But one day I'm going to be gone. And when I realized like the lights never shut off, like my near death experience I had, like there was no pause. It
Yeah.
was Drew was always this Drew was
Yeah.
always here, you
Yeah.
know?
Right.
This Drew was always here, and he was always just as fresh as he is right now.
Yeah.
And
That's a pretty
that
cool. That's a pretty cool perspective to have there on that. You know,
oh man.
when you can definitely feel that way.
Yeah.
So, and I think, like you say, healing at that's hard. You know, you talked in the beginning. I mean, when you first went on your experience, I mean, everything came out of your gut. I think
Yeah.
because
I'm gonna clean
that's
this
where all
camera
our
off.
yeah, sure, but that's
Go
where all
ahead.
our trauma sits. You know,
Well, yeah, it's really our brain, you know, that's where
you got it, man. It's 90%, 80%, I think, of our thought processes, our traumas. I mean, I'm going to tell you a big medicine I did was iboga. And I thought ayahuasca was it. Iboga, you'll never, I mean, that is the purgatory of all. And I thought I got everything out. But when I did that medicine, the deep healing that medicine does, and that's not a psychedelic, I don't think by any means. That's just a mind eraser. And that's like, let's start life over again. Really
yeah.
different medicine. I'm ready to do
Now,
that one again.
Never been down that road.
Yeah, ready to do that one again too, for sure. But
But
let's talk. Go ahead.
I would like to go back to, the stomach as our, our
Yeah,
second,
for
our really
sure.
our mind, and
Love that.
everything.
Love that
If
conversation.
we are, if we look at our body and our chakra system, we're under this, physical mindset, and we're like, okay, like our main chakra must be like our crown chakra.
Mm-hmm.
Wrong.
It's our solar
our
plex,
main
right?
our main chakra is not our main chakra is our solar plexus,
Yeah.
because that is our portal
Yep.
where energy and comes in and out from source.
And let me ask you something, Drew.
Our computer that runs our mind is up here. That runs our
Yes.
everyday. That runs our
Yes.
fingers, toes. That designs our creations that we bring out of our mind and put out into
Yep.
the physical.
Yep.
I made this whole building that we're sitting in right now. I put all this together.
Beautiful.
Each one of these boards behind me, and this was all in my mind. I saw these boards. I saw what the metal contrast in the boards was going to be in my mind, and I brung it
Mhm.
out. There's four. This four. Therefore, this is sacred. That's why the elders have taught me a long time ago, and it really didn't hit me till, maybe a couple of years ago, of why everything was sacred. Because everything that we see in the physical was in someone's mind at one time.
Hmm.
Therefore, it's sacred.
Hmm. Nice. That's deep. That is deep there, huh? Yeah, those ancestors are pretty smart, aren't they? And they come out after a while. So
Well, these are
the
physical elders. I've been around a lot of traditional ceremonies. Native American ceremonies, both in North American ceremonies and South. Peyote meetings, Native American church meetings, and the conversations around the elders. They always tell you, like, hang out around the elders if you really want to learn. Like, hang out around the elders, and um, I just did that. And man, some of the most beautiful realizations come in those moments.
I bet you, man. I definitely bet you. And back to the solar plex. You know, I don't know because I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but I have to say, I think most of my trauma sat in there, over knowing that's where they sat because everything when my mind would go through, no matter if it was clear, that reaction of those traumas would kick up. So I think with these purgatories of these medicines, they really truly, I think, pull those traumas out. And that is what you are, that's what you're giving up.
Yeah,
I truly believe that 100%.
yeah,
Because a purge and a medicine purge is so different than just throwing up.
yeah, yeah,
It's
for
that.
sure. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's intentional, and
Mhm.
that's one of the the beautiful things about 5-MeO. Like, you're intentional on 5-MeO. Get it dialed in before for those people that are thinking about doing 5-MeO or whatever. Get your intentions set and really make sure that you have a pure hearted intention before you approach that medicine,
Mhm.
because it is very direct. Like, it really works with what you want to happen. And any of these medicines, really, if you go into it and with the mindset of, people ask me all the time, like, what about bad trips? Well, in my mind, there is no bad trips,
What
because
is that?
the
It's true.
the bad trips are the ones that's taught me the most. And
Right,
that's
of
that's just
course.
that's just going into my own darkness. And that's
Mhm.
what a lot of people that are just scratching the surface on this path,
Mhm.
they still think it's a possibility for a bad trip or this or that. They really don't want to face the facts. Really, that's themselves that they're digging into.
Yeah, you're so true about that. That is the truest statement. I mean, there's no such thing really as a bad trip. I mean, they're all work, and you have to go to those. You have to go to those points to find out what you're made of. You have to.
Mhm.
You have to relive all this yuck. You have to relive the yuck. And
Mhm.
biggest thing I think moving forward for us, because we love these medicines so much, especially psilocybin, and we see a big thing in family healing, like bringing the families together. Those who shroom
Mhm.
together bloom together. So you bring the families together and you heal at these cellular levels, and we see it. I mean, we
Yeah.
just see it in the future. You know.
You know, um, I live in southern Colorado in the San Luis Valley. Crestone, Colorado's right up the road. That's a spiritual mecca. There's 28 spiritual retreat centers in that small little mountain town. Buddhist. There's a peyote church there. But I've had the opportunity to go to, like I said, a lot of different ceremonies, and I've sat in several peyote meetings. And the Native American church, lots of times there's 40, 50 people in the ceremony. I've been anywhere from like 20 to 50 people in a peyote ceremony at one time. And one of the most beautiful things is having a mother there in ceremony, and she's breastfeeding, and she's got her husband beside her, and he's singing and she's breastfeeding, and then she eats medicine too, and that ceremony keeps taking place like it has been for a long time. How it's supposed to be, connecting, just what you're talking about, that bringing the family in together with all this healing. I don't, that's where when people say, oh, I need to get a babysitter for my kids and stuff like that, every time that they do a ceremony, why not one time take your kids to ceremony so they can see what it is and actually start changing, within, try to stay within quasi legal and social guidelines.
That's what
But
I was just going to say, because we live here.
but trying to expose your children to that more and more.
Sure.
I've seen my friends' kids that have been exposed to these ceremonies their whole lives, and they speak on a different level. They really do. They speak on such a deep level. One of my buddies, one of my best friends up in Crestone, he's got his son just turned 18. He's got a teenage daughter, a younger son, and they do sweat lodges with the kids. Bring the kids in. Kids set in sweat lodges. They go up on the hill and do vision quests, where they just go up and set them in the mountain with a blanket, and they come back and pick them up in 2 days. Without food and water, they have set up there. The traditional hamblecha, the Lakota hamblecha, like crying for a vision, the vision quest. And these kids are doing it when they're teens. I was 36 when in 2016 when I went to ayahuasca the first time, and I knew that there was a higher power. I had no idea what it was, didn't care what it was really, and but I knew there was a higher power. That was the extent of my spiritual and religious. I went to Sunday school a few times when I was a kid, but that was the extent of my religious and spiritual beliefs up until 2016. And then to meet God and eventually understand that I'm a particle in a cell of God, of source, along with everybody else, is, how do you undo that? There's no undoing that.
There really isn't.
That's the gift these medicines give us. The sure conviction to say that this is the truth. I don't care what people say about me or how they look at me or anything like that. This is the truth of what it is. We were talking about the UFO thing too. Like, there has been so many people that has died and suffered from depression, suicidal thoughts, from the ridicule of using psychedelics, and scared to tell their truth, about UFOs too. Like, so all these things that, I think that's why I kind of lump the UFO thing and psychedelics into the same thing, because it's a suppressed truth that we are entitled to because we are here. These are truths just because we are human beings and we're entitled to these truths, but they've all been held back for a reason. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons I lump all this together, is because these are all truths that's been hidden by the government for so long, because it expands consciousness. And once the consciousness of a person expands past a point of control, and that's, the suppression of psychedelics, the suppression of the UFO um, information and knowledge and all these things could have
So,
could have
so
saved
what
so
is
many people's lives. So the
right?
blood's on the government's hands. I'm sorry.
So, yeah, of course, but so okay, I'm a few questions leading into all this, and what, where do we? They can't stop it. So what do we do now? I mean, they can't stop all this. They can't stop this and this and
Keep our
this.
foot
We
on the
just
keep our foot on the gas.
thank you so
Keep our
much.
foot on keep our foot on the gas and keep having programs like this,
Mhm,
having and providing outlets and speaking and sharing your truth.
mhm.
Because when this episode, it may reach another person
Yeah,
outside your normal listening
absolutely.
things, and one of your normal listeners, it may one of the things I say may hit a tone inside them that starts something for them, and that's all that matters.
Yeah,
And it just keeps moving further. It just keeps growing and growing. So we just
yeah,
keep speaking. We don't, and we tell our truths, and we don't care what anyone else thinks because we know it's true.
right.
I know, I know personally, um, and I myself have been through, like, you know, my books, I speak about psychedelics and ceremonies and UFOs too. But the ridicule for it's funny. I was speaking about this the other day. The ridicule I got in the UFO community because of psychedelics. My validity is diminished because of my use of psychedelics in the UFO community. it's
Right.
it's crazy that there's still judgment there. So we have to lose that judgment across the board. We have to accept. I mean, even people that still tell their experiences, listen to those experiences, whether they physically happen or not. It doesn't really matter, because in
It
the end,
doesn't.
like, we're sharing our visions, like that never physically happened.
Right.
So it's listen to the vibration of it. Like, when I'm listening, people tell their stories of ceremonies they've been to or experience they've had, mystical experiences with ghosts or whatever. I'm listening to what they're really saying, and most of the time it's working through something,
Mm,
you know.
mm. So you like integration? Big part of integration, a part of
I mean, without integration, what's the point? You
you're
know.
so hit. You nailed that. And I think that's the core purpose of everything that leads to these medicines. Because in the truth be says, we talk about these medicines like San Pedro, ayahuasca, 5-MeO, psilocybin. We do these every day. We actually don't. Microdosing I will do almost every other day, every day. It's just like a daily maintenance for me. I like it, and it's just something I enjoy doing. But for the most part, those big journeys for me, those big deep down, shake it up, they're kind of gone. I'm looking forward to one coming up soon, but for the
Yeah.
most part, I think these medicines just they change, man. They change you at a
Yeah.
cellular level.
You know, there's another topic that me and my wife have spoke about before, like in ceremonies, where if you go to the medicine, if you go to these ceremonies and you're like, okay, I'm going for a healing, like I'm going to dig down and try to figure out, I don't even know what's wrong with me anymore. You do like maybe 20 or 30 ceremonies with ayahuasca, and like, I don't even know what to go after anymore.
Right.
I don't even know what to, like, childhood trauma. Okay, took care of that. Like, war trauma, took care of that. Like, what else? What else do I have to look forward? What else do I have to do ceremony for? What about gratitude?
Yeah.
What about doing a ceremony because you're in gratitude? Or what about doing a ceremony because you just want to know what the universe has to say,
Mm,
you know? And just let it be like that.
yeah.
I was speaking about this the other just yesterday, actually. I told we were getting ready. I was speaking to another person about a podcast, or on a podcast. It was about man, I missed it. Lost it. I lost that thought. It
It was
went to the
about you
universe.
podcast is. Well, we'll go to the next thing. We'll be. We all know what integration is all about. We know how important integration is, and I feel this. I feel this will be a great setup for just. I don't even know how your church is, but I would like you to tell us a little bit how you operate. But I like posts. I like the journey. I like the after pre journey, post integration, and then connect people to communities or give them these tools like breath work, like lead them to Joe Dispenza, or you have to. You can't just figure out that you're going to take these medicines and come off and do nothing. You have to take some tools with you. I think the biggest tool for me was breath work. Breath work changed my life. Breath, breathing right, changed everything. Like we talked about the chakras earlier. I think you keeping those all wide open, very important, very important to keep those chakras open and very important to breathe, because we don't know how to breathe in today's society.
I totally agree. And I think the understanding of the chakra systems and working with medicine, um, that's really for some it maybe seem advanced, but that's where we need to get to, like the integrating those ceremonies into your life and changing and really listening to the intuitive messages from your ceremonies, visions, dreams, whatever it is, and integrating those into your life is very important. Like that's what we talk about integration. What integration means to integrate. If you go and integrate these messages from the quantum field into the physical, like that's how you're really changing things.
And if you don't know what that is, talk to somebody that knows what that is. That's why we have these integration coaches. Integration coaches are going to be a key for the future of these medicines.
Our journey, when someone comes to ceremony with us or whatever, it starts lots of times, sometimes years before they actually come set with us, sometimes months, sometimes weeks. But depending on what ceremony they're coming out for, really all of them, we go through a physical screening. My wife's a nurse, LPN nurse, so she set up a medical screening that we go through for each person, especially if it's combo. There's a couple of there's different questions depending on what ceremony they're coming out for, or what ceremonies they're coming out to sign up with us for. But we do hikes with Wachuma a lot. We grow our own San Pedro here. We have a greenhouse. We have about 35 plants growing right now. And sorry
to interrupt you, but that's a beautiful medicine for somebody scared of psychedelics to jump into that. That is a beautiful medicine. But go ahead.
It really is. It's it's the elders always said that the San Pedro and the peyote, they connect you to the star people, because if you cut a San Pedro, if you lay a San Pedro down and cut it and then look at it, what it looks like a star. Peyote's same way. There's a star inside, and that's really what it connects you to. Connects you to the outer realm, Father Sky, the sun, the stars. Those
medicines. A little scarier. Just a tad bit.
I've only had like one vision on peyote, and it was time travel one. It was pretty profound, but it was during the midnight song to the water eagle. Well, the eagle is always sung at midnight, and there's a water blessing everything, and that's like the middle of the night for the ceremony. So the roadman was singing the calling to the eagle, the prayer to the eagle, and I started to purge. It was the first time I ever purged on peyote. It was like my probably fourth or fifth ceremony. I started to purge, and I looked at the fire, and all of a sudden I looked around, and we were in this field. We went from like where we were having the ceremony at in this building to where we were in this middle of this field, and same fire and everything. And I looked around, and none of the people that was at the ceremony was there. There was people in headdresses, and there was feathers all around. It was definitely an older time that I was at. And I looked up, and there was the same song was playing, and I looked up, and the roadman was standing beside me, beside the fire, singing the song. And I purged again, and I went back, and when I opened my eyes from purging that time, I was back in the building, and I looked over at the roadman. He was just finishing up the song, and about 10 or 15 minutes after he finished the song, went on to someone else. They started singing. He got up and walked out to use the restroom. And as he walked past me, he leaned down. And he's like, "That was some wild shit." He's like, "We were talking about that afterwards," but he's like, "That's never happened to me." And I was like, you were there? He's like, yeah. He's like, we went to that field.
Wow. Isn't that pretty cool?
It was a shared
Wow.
vision. It was a
That just
shared
gives me the
vision.
chills, man.
It was a
Wow.
shared vision of a time travel, and
Wow.
it's only
That's
happened in
pretty
one.
cool.
He's
And
doing
how,
medicine.
how would he even know? That's wild right there. That's crazy. That is intense. I love it.
Yeah,
So let me
it's
ask you
wild.
something, because we got to end this pretty soon. So where are you going? What's you're doing? What's going on with your church, and what are you going to do there in Colorado? Tell everybody where you're at, and we'll go from there.
Oh, so we're in Southern Colorado, San Luis Valley, and we're going through an expansion process right now. We just had a show come out and film, a reality show come out and film in April. That episode's about, I can't really say anything more about that, but that episode to be airing this fall. We have we're talking to some investors. We've been having some pretty deep conversations, had business plans written up and everything, and went through the initial start of taking on a large investor for our church. So big expansion coming. And next up is coming out and have a face-to-face meeting and kind of setting ceremony with us. So the next thing that we got coming up is our investors coming out, and we're going to do a ceremony and talk about financials and really sit down and really get some things on paper. So it's an amazing time for our church and what we're doing for our family. We're expanding. Like, I got a newborn and a toddler and all that. So it's a bunch of expansions all around. And the more that as the days go by, I feel more and more like a kid and feel more and more like an observer. This is the thought that I missed earlier. It left me. It came back. So the observer, maybe for the past year or so, I've been more of the observer mindset of my existence. And what I found is when I gave control over and just observed my existence instead of trying to make decisions on where it's going, I come to realize that whatever I'm observing, making the decisions for my path, thinks higher of me than I do of myself. Because what's manifesting in front of me is outside of anything that I ever felt that I deserve. So it's I would definitely suggest people try to dive into that understanding of consciousness or understanding of your everyday. Be the observer and just let things happen the way they are and watch how they are and go with that flow. And being that observer from and trying to just trying to be more source like or Jesus like or whatever you want to call it, more Buddha like, more balanced, whatever you want to call it. Try to be that and see how your life actually changes. So see what manifests in your life.
Great point. Great point. So I love what you're doing. I love the awareness, and just I think, like you say, the more we get this out there, and we're doing it, the more it's out there, the more we're growing. I'd love to be a part of that tentacle while you're growing. I think that's very important that we all just keep connected, and just grow together and don't be so selfish, because, psychedelics are going somewhere this time. This isn't the 60s anymore. These medicines work.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. I mean, and that was one of the things that hit me at this conference, the psychedelic science conference, the MAPS conference just recently, um, up in Denver. It was the vibe there was like, oh my God, this is really happening. They projected 10,000 people, over 12,000 people showed up. And the vibration there was just so, this is the norm now, and if, we're physical beings, and we're also spiritual beings, and we have a right to all of it.
Like I think the number one Facebook groups now are microdosing moms in different cities. So that's how big this is getting. Moms need to microdose. Start there, because it starts with that feminine. Brother, it was really nice talking to you. I think we'll do this some more. And I love what you're doing. I love your path. I do. I really love what you're doing.
This is book number 1. I'm Perfect and So Are You. Find it on Amazon.
Yeah.
or you can find it on our website, sacredjourneyswithin.com. That's the portal to everything. You can find links to my Eagles Nest podcast, have tons of interviews on psychedelics, ETs, consciousness, all the above. And my second book, Find Your Inner Guru. This is to answer the question, what we do after our enlightening moment or enlightening vision. Like, what do we do with it? You know, the integration. So this is what we do after that moment, you know, how we
Is that an integration book? Is that like an integration catalog?
Kinda. And it's also done with my co-author on both my books, Dr. Colleen Duran. She's a retired neuropsychologist, so she puts a lot of insight on, you know, the academic standpoint of all this too. But yeah, at the end of each chapter, there's questions to review, and that's why it's so big. So you can kind of reflection questions at the end, kind of an integration book, you know.
Like
but the first one, I'm perfect and so are you. Kind of the first 8 chapters or so tells my story of my leading up to my moment of experiencing true oneness, and then after that, kind of has some more insight. But yeah, the second book is more about the integration part.
Yeah, it's so important to give people things to take home with. You know, we'll end here. The biggest takeaway I found out while leaving Soul Quest is when I left Soul Quest. You know, I was fortunate enough that I lived in Florida, so I had a community. Most of the people were thrown to the wolves when they left Soul Quest. Now, that was sad to me. That's why I know we started everything we started, because community, integration, information, and education. So important. Drew, it was great talking to you today, brother.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate both you guys, and, you know, blessings on your path and your church and everything that you guys got going on. So that comes from deep from my heart.
Yeah, much love to you, brother.